At the beginning of the year 2020, something began to sweep around the globe that would soon be at the forefront of everyone's minds. In this wake of destruction, countries began to close their borders and introduce social distancing measures on an unimaginable scale that had not been witnessed for generations. At the beginning of the year, we had just returned from Australia and had spent 2 months exploring our beautiful home country of Scotland. After this period, we intended to move to the small island of Guernsey to work for 3 months, which would be long enough to satisfy Gemma's requirements for her nursing registration. As you would expect, these plans, along with the plans of every single person in the world, were blown out of the water by this particular event. This is just a short video detailing our personal experience on the island of Guernsey throughout the year of 2020, from the introduction of a full-scale lockdown to the relaxing of border controls on the island. We are filming this today because it is this weekend as a special milestone for Guernsey, details of which we will discuss later on in the video. So, as I said before, we'd literally just arrived back in Scotland. We'd been touring around Scotland for maybe 2 months, 1 month. We'd done around best road trips we've ever done in Scotland. We'd really enjoyed Christmas with our families. We were planning to come across to Guernsey just as we started to hear about the first case of COVID. I think it was still in the Asia side of the world, hadn't quite come across to the UK yet. And I don't think back then we actually realised how serious a thing it was going to turn out to be, as probably most people in the world didn't actually know about it.
Yeah, we were still planning on staying in Guernsey for 3 months, then going to Asia, and then going back to our little camper van in Australia. But as you can see, that hasn't turned out.
Yeah, I think that was quite a naive thought looking back on it from now to looking back and reflecting on what it has actually turned out to be now. The first time we really started to switch on to it was when we were driving from Glasgow down to the south of England to get the ferry across the Guernsey, and I think that was when the first case hit the UK, and even back then the testing wasn't high enough, so they obviously couldn't trace just how widespread it was in the UK back then. So luckily we managed to hop on a ferry and get across to Guernsey before it all kicked off in the UK.
So we are working in healthcare in Guernsey, and we'd been in Guernsey for about a month. Now we knew that if it hit this little island, we were going to be in trouble. We were working with really vulnerable people, so we were going to have to be really, well, as we always are, really extra careful.
And then the first day that actually there was a case on the island identified, I think a couple of weeks before that they'd start to become switched on about people arriving back into Guernsey, and I believe it was the 9th of March was the first case that was announced that people had arrived back in Guernsey and tested positive for the virus. So as Gemma said, it was about 30 days we'd been working in healthcare for, heads in the sand, and I think it was really starting to hit home about what this could actually mean for such a small community such as Guernsey, because we live right across from the main hospital, and I believe there was about 15 ICU beds for an island of probably about 50 or 60,000 people. So if it really got bad, we knew that there was going to be a problem. So that was when we started to actually notice that this is going to be something that is going to change the way we live day to day. And then after about a week after the first case was announced was really when they started to put down the restrictions on how we live life in the Bailiwick. I think it was about the 20th of March. They announced that bars and clubs would have to close down. There would have to be more social distancing measures put in place. And there was a night where we were in town, possibly I think a couple of nights after the bars and clubs closed. We'd gone out for dinner, and it was really starting to hit home about how much of a ghost town St Peterport actually was, because the high street was dead. There was no one on it at all. I think there was about 2 or 3 people in the restaurant, and it showed just by, even before the lockdown was imposed on Guernsey, a lot of people were starting to be scared about what this could actually mean to their families and to their own health.
So throughout this time, we had still been going to the gym as normal. We were attending the gym classes, and the following weekend we still had a class booked. Now we woke up that morning, opened up our phones, scrolled onto Facebook, saw a news article. All of a sudden there were around 20 cases of coronavirus in Guernsey, and that made us really think. We thought about where we worked, we thought about our own health, the fact that we could easily pass this on to anybody, and we thought, no, this has to stop. And that was when we decided that we would be taking things a lot more seriously. we cancelled our gym class, and not long after that the whole island actually went into lockdown.
Yeah, so that was even taken out of our hands. We done it a couple of days earlier, but I think it was about 4 days later, the 24th of March. That was when we were watching the news. There was a live announcement coming up. It was something that we all predicted. I think we knew deep down that it was going to happen. But we watched the live Facebook event, and that was when they announced that Guernsey was going to be going into full lockdown. So it's just happened. States of Guernsey just called a press conference and live on Facebook, and I think it's going to be redistributed over the television and the radio over the coming days. States of Guernsey and the Bailiwick are now officially on lockdown, which means, similar to the UK, no non-essential travels, only going out for shopping, no gathering of more than 2 people outside, and yeah, that's it. Literally 2 weeks after what we said the first vlog we made of this, and it's officially gone into a complete lockdown. So it's interesting times ahead. Now, in a couple of weeks after lockdown was actually introduced, it didn't seem as if life changed that much for Gemma and I. Because we were working in healthcare, we were still getting out the house for a good 9 hours a day on top of our hour or 2 hour daily exercise. I was redeployed into another area of work because the first place I was working in was non-essential. So that was the only part that actually changed about my life. It was a couple of weeks later that when people started to do the famous panic buying of bog roll and bread flour, that we actually started to notice a bit of changing. So that was when we were going to the shops. We would have to socially distance in these shops. Masks weren't quite introduced yet. They hadn't become compulsory around the world. So all that happened is we had to queue outside the shop, and then we would go inside and see how bare the actual aisles were.
Now, especially because Guernsey is an island, that means we're even more limited, and if there's any delay in the ferries, we already have a little bit of a problem. So this made things a lot more difficult.
Now, as lockdown progressed, it started to become a lot more difficult. We were starting to miss the daily comforts that we enjoyed so much. I think you had to wear a mask at work, and
yeah, I was getting very sick of that. Now, I know that this is something that long term we are going to have to do,
we need
but
to prepare
my
for that.
goodness. Yeah.
It wasn't that comfortable.
No.
We even had a lockdown birthday, which we've got an entire video on. It's really, really good. If you're interested in that, go and check it out. I'll put a little card up the top, one of these 2 corners. And life was pretty bland. We had a lot of time to catch up on old YouTube videos, old work that we were doing, and actually the introvert in me kind of enjoyed staying inside.
Yep.
But then summer started to come, and I was really missing getting out and actually being outside and enjoying ourselves. So luckily for us, lockdown started easing really early. So on the 24th of March, we went into full phase 1 lockdown. That was the most crucial part of it. You could basically, our liberties were really, really limited. 1 month later, on the 25th of April, that was when we moved into phase 2. So I think that was, you can order more online, because the deliveries were a bit more open. And then from there, about a month later again, we moved into phase 3, and that was when it started picking up really quickly. We're in phase 4, phase 5, and into where we are now within the space of about a couple of weeks. So it was towards the end of May that we moved into phase 5, and that was actually where we were pretty much back to normal within the Bailiwick of Guernsey.
So on the 27th of May 2020, we hit a milestone on the island where we finally reached 0 cases of coronavirus. Also, the smaller islands around the Bailiwick started to open up, which meant we could go on holiday and get off the island, so we were really, really looking forward to it. We went to both Sark and Herm, which you can see our Sark video, one of these corners. One
of the best videos I've ever made, guys. You need to check it out. Yeah. How are you feeling?
God.
I feel like I was up partying with those kids. Oh yeah, for all the eagle-eyed viewers, we had to move the tent last night because there was a bunch of noisy kids out partying. Gosh darn kids! And there it is, guys. La Coupe. So this is like the bridge between Le Petit Sark over there and Le Grand Sark. So Big Sark and Little Sark. So this is a side to travel blogging that is often overlooked, and it is a quick wardrobe change. And she's gonna put on something beautiful. In 3, 2, 1.
really, really fun trip. And then the following, well actually that same week we went to Herm, and we were getting in and out the sea, enjoying summer and looking forward to having the rest of the summer to enjoy,
able to
really,
do whatever we wanted. Yeah, exactly. We finally had these liberties back, and we were absolutely making the most of them. Now, another part of Phase 5, which was the Life as Normal in the Bailiwick, it later then became known as Phase 5A, because we had a Phase 5B as well. But the part of Phase 5A was that Isle of Man started to become part of our air bridge. I believe they had 0 cases as well for about a good length of time, and it meant that you could go on holiday to the Isle of Man and not have to isolate upon your return to Guernsey. So we never actually went across because we were just busy with work, and we were enjoying Herm and Sark and just life in Guernsey too much to actually go out there. We had so much fun and so much to see around Guernsey, so maybe we'll get across there soon, fingers crossed. But Phase 5B was later introduced, possibly about another month, 2 months later. I believe we're in Phase 5A for quite a length of time. But Phase 5B started to introduce relaxed travel measures from other countries around the world, one of which was the UK, which meant that when you arrived from the UK, you could only isolate for 7 days, which then you would take a test afterwards, and if you came back negative, you didn't need to continue isolating for another 7 days. Which was a huge change in what was actually happening, because it opened up the door for people to come and visit Guernsey and not have to isolate for 2 weeks, which made holidays and visiting family and stuff like that more of a viable option, I think. Now, this was hugely critiqued and argued, and there's arguments on both sides I can see about whether it's a good idea or not. I think only time is going to tell whether it's a good idea or not, but the leaders of Guernsey have been very strong and have a lot of confidence from the public of Guernsey for so long, so we can only really trust their decision making and hope that they're doing the best thing for Guernsey.
So being a small island, there's been a real sense of community togetherness throughout the lockdown and just throughout the pandemic. So today there is going to be a festival which is about celebrating the end of lockdown and celebrating how quickly we've got to this Phase 5B. It's called the Guernsey Together Festival. It's going to be held in Summery Park, and from what I can gather, there's lots of live music, a beer tent, just lots of fun things going on. So that is our plan for this afternoon.
Yeah, so we're going to go down there, celebrate the end of lockdown, and we're going to bring you guys along with us, and we'll tell you more about the festival when we get down there, so we'll see you there. Alright, so we are down at Summery Park now, where this Guernsey Together Festival is happening, and it's quite a good atmosphere already.
Yeah.
Even though the rain clouds have come in, everyone in Guernsey's come down, got together, and we're enjoying the market stalls, the live music that's around here, and it's quite a good summary of everything that Guernsey stands for. They love their festivals here, and that is just amazing, we think. So going forward from now, there's a few questions that I'm sure are on the forefront of everyone's minds, such as with the relaxed travel measures, are we going to have more cases coming into Guernsey? What's winter going to bring? Like with the flu season coming, is there going to be an increase in that? We're going to need to go back into lockdown. And the most important question for us is, when will we be able to travel again? Like, we're in no rush, we don't want to break any rules, and we don't want to do anything stupid. But we have some big plans for as soon as we can hit the road again. We are very excited to get going. Overall though, I think the most important factor is how lucky we feel to be here, exactly where we are right now. I don't think there's anywhere in the world that is better to be right now than in Guernsey. It's the safest place, you've got the most freedom, and in our opinion it's possibly the most beautiful place we could be right now at this moment in time.
We're very lucky. So let us know what you think about the questions that we've just asked, and also let us know where you are in the world right now, and if you think that Guernsey will be on your travel plans when it all opens up again. If you like this video, guys, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on our next videos that we've got coming up, which will be all about Guernsey, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you later.